Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Play the Tape. I am your host, Derek J. Fields. Listen, I sound better. I sound better this week than last
You
week.
do. You do.
I sound so much better. Uh, I just want to let my viewers and my listeners know. Thank you for that patience and hanging in there with everything. I was a little under the weather, but God is good. I feel a lot better, and I'm here today. But I wasn't going to let that stop me, and I'm back with my brother again, Mr. Sean Young, a long-term recovery veteran in the United States Army, peer support specialist. Sitting with Sean podcast, an alumni of the National Therapeutic Courts, which we didn't get into the information and everything that entails, which I would like to. And Sean uses his experience in addiction, mental health disorders, and in recovery to help those struggling life experiences. My dog came up to me and startled my hand. That's why I jumped like that and stuttered. But Sean uses his platform to spread hope to those who feel hopeless and to offer guidance to those who feel lost. And I appreciate him and my brother for doing that. And first and foremost, I want to say to you, Sean, man, I love you, brother. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for your service as serving your country, and thank you for your service as in the mental health and substance use community. Thank you, my guest, my brother again this week, Sean Young. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. I'm good, Derek. Man, every time you introduce me, I feel even more special.
You should. That's the point. That
You
is the
know,
point. Yeah,
I
that
haven't
is the
al-
point.
I haven't always felt this way, but you make me feel special.
I gotta do it, man. I gotta
Yeah.
do it. Yeah, you
Yeah.
are special. You special to me. You special for the work that you are called to do, and you special to this community. So absolutely, man, you are special. And I want to. There's a lot of things that we didn't get to, and you're like, okay, Derek, why Sean come back? Why you gonna have Chris come back? Why these particular guests? These particular guests, they are special. They are my brothers. All my guests are special. All my guests are my brothers and sisters in this fight. It's just I wanted Sean to continue to finish his story. I'm gonna have Chris come back and finish his story. So let me get to before we pick up from where we left off. I want to get to you had shared about the relationship moving forward and everything as you growing up with your father. I want to know because we didn't get a chance, and this was on my mind the whole time you were sharing. It wasn't distracting. I was still actively listening to you, but I wanted to know where your mother was, what was going on with that relationship, and how did she take everything that you had went to up to that point before, hey, off to the military, let them deal with you. You're their problem now.
I think that most of those answers or those questions would be better answered if I asked her, because she wasn't around. Um, when I turned 11, I lived with my dad. And I got a call one day from my mom, crying, sobbing. And she said, I'm not going to talk to you until you're 18 or until you're of age. I'm absolutely devastated, right? Because I mean, like, my sister left and like I'm all alone. And my mom leaves, right? My mom just says, oh, I don't want to talk to you till you're of age to know the truth, right? Whatever the truth looks like, because we all have our own truth. She has her own truth, but dad has his truth. Somewhere in the middle is the actual truth. And so she disappeared when I was 11, and for 11 years she was gone. 10 or 11 years. I turned 22. I was stationed in Italy, and I went to Grafenwehr for a training rotation, and I got on Facebook. It's about 2009, and back when Facebook was first starting, and I got a message pop up that says, "Hey, I'm your mom. I want to uh, come back in your life in whatever capacity." Right, like so.
How long ago? How long was that time gap?
11 years.
Wow. Okay. I'm sorry if
Yeah,
I didn't.
yeah, that's
I
all
didn't
right.
hear it the first time. Yeah.
So like I sat there and I had this like moment in time where it was like, do I proceed with this relationship with my mom, or do I tell her fuck you because you weren't around? Right? You didn't get to see all of the everything. You didn't get to save me when I was at when these things were happening. And I took the route of grace and I said I want a relationship with my mom. Over time, I would tell her like what had happened, what had transpired. But in the background, my dad's like, "Hey, man, just watch out, right? Just pay attention, 'cause she's things are not as good as you think they are." And so over time, we would get in these little disagreements, and I was made to believe that I was the problem in these disagreements, right? And then some of them I was right. Like I'll take accountability and responsibility for where I messed up. Um, but then there was this really big blowout. There was a time in my life when I was in Alaska, and I wanted to know both sides of the story from my mom, my dad, and I could formulate my own opinion
Mm-hmm.
about what happened between them. So I asked my dad. I said, "Hey, what is your story?" I asked my mom, "What is your story?" And the conclusion that I came up to was that my dad was taking responsibility for everything he had done, whereas my mom blamed my dad for everything. And I didn't need to know anymore at all. Just said, I don't want to hear anymore because one side is taking responsibility for the problems and the other side is not owning up to theirs.
Did that at that time when you saw your dad do that? I know we're talking about your mom. This goes to both parents. Did you see after you understood that your dad was taking responsibility not for his own actions? Did that make you like, okay, dad, okay, dad, maybe our relationship can be better. Maybe it can be reconciled.
Our relationship was on the rocks, but I wanted unbridled honesty, right? Like
Right.
that's what I wanted. I didn't care if it would hurt my feelings. I wanted it because I deserved it. I felt I deserved to know. And that actually that I can say was a pinpoint moment where our relationship changed from he's my dad to that's my father,
That's
right?
my father. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that change. I've had
Yeah.
that change from that's my dad to that's my father. That's my dude. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and like now in 2023, I can say my dad is one of my best friends, right?
yeah, same.
I live 20 minutes down the road. Like I was saying, I went to his house this morning. There isn't anything I wouldn't do for my dad, and same my dad. There's nothing my dad wouldn't do for me. So
Same. Absolutely. So
my
with
rela- my
no,
relationship with my mom
hmm,
is not non-existent
to this day.
to this day.
Okay.
Um, Long story short, she does things to people, and I look at it like this: she does things to people and she either sees the destruction she creates in their life and doesn't care, or she does things and doesn't see the destruction and then plays the victim. And either one of those, I'm not okay being a participant in that, right? Because I had to for so long with her after our relationship picked up, I was put in the realm of her doing self-destructive things or her doing destructive things in my relationships to me. And I was just like it got to a point where my boundaries continuously were crossed, where I just said I can't do this anymore, right? Like I love her because she's my mom, but I don't have the love that I should have as a son, you know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yes.
Not that I want that love, but I've made the reconciliation. I when I got into recovery, I made my amends to her, and um, it is what it is.
Okay. I guess, and I was about to ask you how was that received, but I got your answer to the way to how. So if you're listening, listeners, you could just tell the way that Sean reacted to once he said he made his amends. It was I throw my hands up and I wash my hands of it, and I did what I was supposed to do, and I let it rest where it may, and because I was like, man, I wanted did it was did she receive that well, and I guess not, but it's
Well,
okay.
it was received well, right? Like it was received well, and I wasn't looking for reciprocation at all. But the events that led after that
Hmm.
um, didn't necessarily line up with everything that she said, right? Like, so
Mm.
apologize for this one specific incident, but every time that we would get into a disagreement, she would revert back to that situation and dangle that over my head, or continue on the self-destructive and destructive path that she was on, right? So like I'm going through a divorce right now. I'm open and honest about that. um, she calls my ex-wife last week, wants to talk to her. Mind you, she never had a relationship with my ex-wife, period, but calls her and systematically starts talking shit on me to my ex-wife. Now my ex-wife didn't have to have the courtesy to say, hey, this is what was said about you, but she did. And she said, hey, I think you should know. And I didn't address the situation because at this point she knows what she's doing. That's okay. She's done it before, to me, to my sister, to my uncle, to my grandparents. This is a pattern. So
Mm-hmm.
I just said, look, I said, I thank you for letting me know, but I choose not to address it. And that's where I'm at in my recovery. If you would have caught me 3 or 4 years ago, I'd have been like, what is your problem? Right? Like, stay out of my business. But that side of me now is like, she's in her own undoing, right? She's People around her are starting to see the way that she acts and the way that she treats other people, and it's only a matter of time before she steps out again, because she was an addict.
Mm-hmm.
It's only a matter of time, and I can't stop that from happening. I have to give her own space to mess up and do things. So
Understand.
yeah.
Um, let's move forward and continue to where your story, because I want to get to that, how you are now in your recovery, but I know that's a journey and it took time for you to get there. So let's rewind back to Alaska. This
Mhm.
was your last um, uh, station before you deployed. Okay.
No, before I retired.
Before you retired. Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Before you retired. Let's pick that up right there before the TBI before, and let's continue that story moving forward. And then we can get to how you got through all of that, your childhood, military, your relationships, and how Sean is to where Sean is today in your recovery.
Okay, so through this whole time, I've been running away from my problems, right? Running away, creating reasons why I was staying sober, but it wasn't like I was sober. I wasn't working a program or any of that. I was putting my recovery. It's not even recovery or sobriety. I was dry drunk on other people. And so, I get promoted to staff sergeant. My list opens up, and they say, "Hey, where do you want to go?" And I handed my second wife the list, and she said, Alaska. Let's go. So we packed up, moved to Alaska after, with the orders. We get to Alaska, and I hit the ground running, right? I take over a team, go right into a training rotation, just all the crazy airborne stuff. You've been in an airborne unit before.
Yes.
It's
Hmm.
insane. It's
Yes, it
insane.
is. Yes, it is.
And so, like, you jump right in the training rotations. It doesn't matter. And then we're slated for this deployment and for 2017, on the tail end of 2017 and 2018. And before any for anybody that doesn't know, there's a pre-deployment memory test. You go in, you take this test, and it tests your short-term, long-term memory, as well as your reaction time and your brain function. I failed it miserably. Um, and I go to get my results up at the front where the nurse is, and she's like, "We need to take you into to see a doctor right now." I said, "Wow, what's going on?" She's like, I can't tell you." So we go into this doctor's office. I'm already up to 11 at this point. Like, I'm freaking out. I'm like, why am I in this doctor's office? And, so this this doctor, neurologist, comes in, and she's like, well, I'm looking at your test right now, and it shows me that you have TBI. I'm like, what the hell is TBI? It's like traumatic brain injury. I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm in an airborne unit, jumped out of airplanes, and the Army requires you to do dumb stuff sometimes.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, absolutely. And so at first, right, like the doctors, and here's something that I learned over time, over a lot of like introspective work. Like, doctors and like can create trauma for you,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
traumatic situations, not just physically, not just like, oh, I hate the dentist because I had a tooth removed one time and I don't want to feel that pain. Like, it can prevent you from walking into that office because you don't want to have to deal with getting with the rejection. And so I walked into this office, and the same doctor that said we need to get you help was relaxed, laid back, chill. She's like, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you got me all hyped up. You got me to 211, and I come in here and I'm concerned now, right? Because like I'm starting to see these signs that I didn't see before, that I just brushed off as being normal. And you're pointing them out and saying that they're not normal. So I go in, and she's all chill, and I lost my shit, right? And maybe I shouldn't have, but I had to advocate for myself. And I said, look, um, I'll do whatever I have to take, whatever it takes, right? Whatever it takes to get better, I will do, or at least get to the best position I can be. And my chain of command has my support. My chain of command was phenomenal. They were like, hey, dude, take as much time as you need. If you need to go on permanent profile, like, and there's things that you can't do, we'll support you.
And that's a blessing. Not a lot of people get that. I had to fight. I had to fight my my first sergeant. My
Yeah.
commander knew because I was in the ADA unit
Yeah.
after my second tour coming back from Korea, and and a lot of them air defense artillery don't see combat. They just
Okay.
go stateside to Korea and back to the states. So a lot of them didn't understand the suicide ideations, the suicide attempts, the ish hitting the fan because there
Yeah.
was no time to process two tours and everything that had happened with that in a 3.5 year period. So I'm with you. That's a
Yeah.
blessing that you had it. But I was fortunate I had my commander. He understood. So he was like, same with you. He was like, you know what, Derek, I understand. I take care of top.
Yeah.
I got it. Do you handle your business, you get well, make sure that you get what you need to get out of here to make sure that you're okay on the back end. I'll take care of top, which is we call first sergeant
Yeah.
top. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know that.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I'm with you. That was a blessing that you had your company behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in a combat unit, right? Like, because
Right.
there's that stigma of like, you're a man, you cannot be perceived as anything less, right? If you're in a position in a combat unit and you are on a permanent profile, or there's something wrong with you, you either tough it out or you get on profile and you go get fixed. But if you get fixed, you're a bitch. That is the perception. And that's like the stigma
Mm-hmm.
that I had to fight through this,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Because my first sergeant and my top and my commander were all behind me, but my platoon sergeant wasn't. Platoon sergeant was like, dude, like, why you acting like a bitch? And I said, look, man, like, I'm just feeding you information I got from the doctors, and like, I need to get better because you guys don't see what life is like when I go home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You guys see life here. You don't see what life is like at home. Because I can shut that shit off at work. Not all of it, but I can shut enough of it off. But when I go home, I can't, right? There's nowhere to run. And life at home wasn't any better either because I'm focusing on my mental health and I'm focusing on my physical health, and I'm taking away from that, right? So, like, work, home, and then health. The one thing to go was home. And I didn't understand the balance. So all the while, I'm at work. Uh, I'm going to the gym, trying to get as fit as I can be, so that um, I'm not that stereotypical dude that's on profile that gets fat, right? And not saying that that's a bad thing, because a lot of people just can't physically push it. But then I started doing more harm to myself physically, because the brain, the pumping, the blood through the brain, and my symptoms started getting worse. When I got into the actual pipeline of TBI, I was going to occupational therapy, so they were helping me with my hand-eye coordination.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing speech therapy because I used to stutter a lot. I couldn't formulate sentences. I would lose track of what I was trying to say. But really, it was just me and a bitch fest, right? Like, I was sitting in this room with this psychologist, and I'm just spilling the beans about everything, about how mad I am. And she's like, "See, you talk perfect when you're angry," and I'm like, "I know." Uh,
I'm not laughing at that. That's funny because
it's true
it's
though.
true though, right? I can relate to that because I say to my wife all the time, I'm like with my TBI and all the brain injury and all the scarring and all the trauma and all the drug use, I can't articulate the same. I have to slow down, and there are words that I feel, but I can't grasp them. Like
Mm.
I was on an there are some words that it's like, what is that word? I know it, I feel it, but I can't get it.
Can't
And
put the face to the
I,
name.
I can't put the face to the name. So I was just laughing because I'm with you. Because when I get upset and get pissed off, I talk very well. Oh, I'm articulating all types of words to get my point. But
My
that's why I was
vocabulary
laughing.
opens up.
Yeah, very much so. That's why I was laughing. I was laughing because I can relate with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So.
And then the last program that I really enjoyed, and I had a misconception about it, was music therapy. Right,
Hmm.
music therapy. I just thought I was going to go into a room and I was going to listen to music and talk about how it made me feel. But it was so much more. I learned guitar. I even learned ukulele. I learned how to play the drums, and it was awesome because it didn't just give me an outlet to focus that all those negative emotions, but it also created a new neural pathway in my brain to help me with my memory, which is awesome. Um,
Did
music
they?
changes. Go ahead.
No, I know. Go ahead. Yeah, I know you're about to say music. Go ahead. Music changes.
I was gonna say music changes your life.
And I wanted to ask you with that, because we always take moments of clarity. Sometimes we see them, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we see them and we ignore them. Sometimes we wish that we see them, but like, man, did I see that? Is it too late? Did I not see what I was supposed to see? Did I miss out on a blessing? Am I missing out on God talking to me? What's going on with that music? Learning to play the drums, the ukulele, all the different things that help you neurologically. Did that give you confidence to be like, okay, now I can actually sit down and have a conversation about how I'm really feeling?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and it helped me be able to write stuff down, right? Like because I could never put pen to paper how I felt, but for once in my life, I was able to sit down and write down how I felt, right? Whether it was in letter form, whether it was in poetry, whether it was in song form, I was doing it. It was awesome. So February 2018 comes around, and I go home one day, and I'm told, "Hey, I'm not happy being in this relationship by my wife," and she's like, "I'm cheating on you. I'm not going to stop." Destroyed me, right? Because like, here's another relationship that I was a part of that's dissolving, and
Were you open at that time to be like, hey, listen, I'm in therapy? Were you
she already
what?
knew. She
Okay,
already knew.
were you using anything?
No, no,
Okay,
I was
so you
sober.
sober in therapy. Hey, would you consider going to therapy with me? Let's try
She
marriage
didn't want
counseling.
to.
Okay,
She didn't want to.
okay.
And so like I got to this point where like the depression, like I got sucked right back down. I was on cloud nine and I got
Mm.
sucked right back down, dude. And from February to May, man, I was just living in this some of the worst times of my life. And I was going to work, I was coming home, I wasn't eating, I was barely sleeping, my insomnia was acting up. It was just madness, what my mental health, the depths in which it took me to. And then Cinco de Mayo 2018 rolls around, and I'm like, I'm gonna go fucking drink. I don't care. So I started drinking again. Um, and that relapse lasted for a month. And at the end of that month, right, like I was sitting there and I was just like, depression and alcohol is terrible together, by the way, or any
Right.
substance. And so I just got to this point where I was like, I don't want to fucking live anymore. Don't care to live. I don't want to be alive. And I wanted the pain to be over, but there was no escape for the pain, right? There was no reprieve because I had to wake up in the same house to the same person doing the same thing. I would go to work and I had to put a fake smile on. I had to go to my counseling, put a fake smile on because I didn't want them to know how deep down I was. Um, and so I devised this plan. I was like, look, I'm just going to go one last blowout, right? We're gonna go down this creek bed about an hour away, and we're gonna have this massive bonfire. And I'm gonna drink so much, run my fucking truck into a tree. I did it, 70 miles an hour into a fucking tree. But before then, I sat there and I said, I'm gonna make one last attempt because I felt so alone, dude. Like I felt like I had nobody in my corner. I felt like I had no one, and so I was like, I'm gonna call 32 people. All right, I'm gonna call. I'm just gonna make calls, right?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
there's not a set amount, but I'm gonna make calls until I'm done making calls. I made 32 phone calls that night. Derek, do you know how many people picked up?
Nobody.
Not a single person. And that was the moment that I felt the lowest, and where I felt the most alone, where I felt like I wasn't worth anybody's time, and that it wasn't worth it.
Okay, then if some could, I don't like to say this, but devil's advocate, and I don't like to do that, but or say
Yep,
that because I don't subscribe to that. But if someone would have picked up, would it have made a difference?
absolutely.
Okay,
I wouldn't have felt so alone. But
okay.
but here's the catch 22 to that. I called people in different time zones where I knew they would be asleep.
Ah, that is that addiction addict mind mentality. You're
Yep.
smarter than you give yourself.
Oh yeah.
I just want people to hear what Sean just said. Be like, man, addicts were very smart, calculated people.
Yep.
That was an intentional. Hey, if they don't pick up, they don't love me. But I'm gonna make sure that they don't pick up because they're in different time zones,
Yep.
so I don't have to have that accountability that somebody could give me if they did pick up.
Yep. Yep.
Yep, yep. Okay, that
So
is whew, that was
yeah.
just powerful that you said that because I've done that. I played that game too, where okay, I'll call, but I'm gonna call when I know ain't nobody gonna answer because I don't want to hear what they got to say. I want to hear it. I want somebody to grasp me and tell me and hug me and tell me, Derek, we love you. Come home. Let's get some help. We'll walk into that facility or that treatment facility together. But at the same time, I don't. So, but yeah.
Yeah. So I called all the people I knew wouldn't pick up, and I literally sabotaged myself and was like, "You're worthless. Nobody cares about you. See, look here. Look at this call log, man. Nobody
Mm.
gives a fuck about you." And so I got in my truck, dude. I drove my truck with two of my friends to this creek bed. They had no way out, and I drove my truck and put that bitch in a tree at 70 miles an hour. I didn't want to be alive. Here's the crazy part about it was I was the UPO for my unit. I knew the
Uh,
amount. I knew the exact amount that I had to drink. I knew
mm, mm-hmm.
I knew everything. I knew how fast alcohol hits your body before you black out from a certain amount. And so I took that time to consume as much alcohol as possible, run myself into this tree. I woke up in the hospital and I was angry. Face was fucked up a little bit, but aside from that, it wasn't bad. And so I wake up to my at the time wife sitting there, and she said, "You know, you're an idiot for trying to kill yourself," which wasn't reaffirming at all. It didn't help me at all in any capacity.
No.
And then she left, and then my first sergeant came in, and same thing. You're an idiot. And I tried to explain to him. I was like, "Look, man, like," and this was a new first sergeant, not the same one.
Okay.
And so, same. He was like, "You're an idiot. You know, you're stupid. You know, whatever you're going through isn't bad enough." And I was like, "All right, man. Like, thanks for sharing." And so when they released me, I went back home, and I got a knock on my door. I was in the shower. I got a knock on my door, and it was security forces, which are the MPs for Air Force Base, and uh, one of my one of the guys that works for me at the time, one of my subordinates. And he looked at me in the face and said, "Look, man, like I love you and I appreciate everything you do, but like I don't trust that you're not going to attempt again." And I said, "I don't know." And he's like, "I don't trust it, so I want you to come to my house." That man literally packed me up in his car uh, and drove me to his house and fed me dinner, fed me food, got me to the point where like I wasn't intoxicated anymore, and let me sleep it off. And then the next day I woke up and I said, "I need some help, dude. Like, I don't even know what that looks like right now, but I need help." So I checked myself into the um, inpatient facility there on the base. And for 11 days, I was there in the white suit, right? I think we
Yeah.
all know what that looks like. White suit. They took all my objects. and I did CBT classes. And looking at it back now, I needed it at that time. I don't need it now. But I got out of there and I had this like new lease on life, right? And I was already in the process of getting medically retired from the army. So there was a little bit more trauma that was trickling down from that because I had that sense of like not having a place. Like I had an identity crisis. And so October comes around, I go through my divorce, my second divorce, and I was like, I'm a free fucking man, right? Like I can just be who I am and focus on me, focus on my daughter. That wouldn't last very long. I met another woman. You see the trend here, man?
I do see the trend. I had that same trend as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I met another woman and we made each other all the promises, right? All the promises. I'll never do this. I'll never do that. She knew about my drinking problem, even though I hadn't formally done anything about it. She knew I had mental health crises, but I didn't go into how deep and how bad they were. Um, so that was October 2018. February 2019, I finally retired from the Army. And I'm out and I'm free and I can do what I want. Weed is legal in Alaska. I go to a dispensary, go home, and I make that excuse that, like, I can't get addicted to weed. So I start smoking weed instead of drinking because that's so much better, right? But it's not the use, it's the behavior.
Right. There you go.
It's
There
the
you go.
and I've been saying this for a while now, but it's not the use, it's the behavior, right? The behavior surrounding that was like, I need to get fucked up and stay fucked up in order to operate in this frame of mind. And so I smoked a lot within a short span, man, like 3 months. I applied to all these jobs, and I don't know if you had the same problem as I did, but finding a job as a veteran, super hard,
Very hard.
super
Super
hard.
hard, super challenging, and
Oh,
frustrating and discouraging.
yeah,
Discouraging. Yeah.
and quite frankly, disenfranchising, man, like
Mm-hmm. Yes.
fucking terrible. So got this job as a customer service agent at the airport. Uh, I learned I hated people. Like, I'm working with people and I hate people.
Oh, we are so similar. I am as my faith grows and my reaffirming in God and in Christ grows. I'm learning that okay, I got a fellowship. Man is not meant to do life alone. But I'm with you, man. I did not like people. It's still hard for me to even sometimes call the people that I care about and be like, "Hey, how are you?"
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to do that consistently. So I'm with you with the part where I don't like people, but I gotta be around them.
My problem was that I looked at like people that didn't have my experience, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
they don't have the same morals and ethics that I do. But I was lying to myself, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Literally just lying to myself, feeding myself this line of shit that like they didn't hold a greater value than I did, or they were less of a person than I was because I had different morals and values because I was in the almighty army, right?
Right, right,
Yeah,
I still feel that way to a certain degree in certain situations in certain places.
yeah,
Especially when I go to CrossFit, just these dudes just be like, "Come get you some, Derek." I'm like, "Man, you have no idea.
right, right. You have no
I
idea.
got some for 10 years. I'm good, and
You
more
get
than
you
and
some.
go get you some."
Yeah. So and I was sober. I wasn't drink. Well, like once again, I wasn't drinking. I wouldn't say I was sober because I was still dry drunk in it. And 4th of July, 2019, I fed myself the lie for the very last time and said, I'm okay to drink. And that relapse lasted for 6 months. And in that 6 months, all the work that I put into like being this good human being went down the drain. And I was calling into work saying I didn't want to fucking go to work because I was sick. I was really hungover. I made an ass out of myself at work. Right. I went from drinking one night a week to drinking almost every night. And it just got bad. And then so December 7th, I recognized December 7th as my sober date, my physical sober date, but I don't recognize that as like my overall sobriety date. December 27th, I claim as my sobriety date. So December 7th, it's just like every other day, man. I go to work. It's a Friday. I come home. On the way home in Alaska, you can go into the gas stations, pick up a bottle. And I was like, I just got paid. I'm going to pick up two bottles.
Mm-hmm.
So I come home, pick up two bottles. I'm not even like, I didn't even turn the keys to get out of the car, man. And I already cracked a bottle, started drinking.
Yep.
Go inside. I hadn't eaten anything all fucking day. And that doesn't even matter. But I go inside and like heavy drinking, man. And like within probably 2 hours, I black out. And then I wake up, like, I don't wake up, but I come to and I'm outside of my house in the middle of like December, no shirt on, no jacket. And I'm angry, dude, just rage monkey, right? Just didn't know why. I walk inside, my house looked like a tornado had gone through it. And then my wife is laying on the floor in the hallway. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I just know like I'm angry, but I also know like I gotta get the fuck out of here. So I left. And I wake up the next morning, and um, I call her up and she said, "You hit me." And I said, "I don't remember doing that." She's like, "You hit me." And I had never hit any of my spouses I was with before. And I said, "Well, if you're saying that this is what happened, then you've never lied to me before. So I got to go turn myself in." So I called Anchorage Police Department. I said, "Look, this is what my wife is saying that I did. So I got to take accountability for it." And they fucking showed up, put handcuffs on me. She was there when it happened. She asked them to take me to the hospital because I needed help, and I ended up going to jail. I sat in jail for like 20 days, man, and like in that 20 days, I blamed everybody for my problems, right? As alcoholics and addicts do, blame everybody, right? It's my dad's fault that I drink because I'm hereditarily dispositioned to be an alcoholic because he was. It's my mom's fault because she was an addict and an alcoholic. It's my wife's fault because she allowed me to drink. It's my roommate's fault because he could have choked me out. He's 10 times bigger than me. But in reality, I was the only fucking problem in that situation. The
Mm.
only one. The only one. And to the core of me, like I couldn't understand that. I couldn't grasp that. All I knew was that in my brain, everybody else was the problem, which I'd fed myself and said for so long. And there's this old native man. We used to call him. We called him Top. Don't know why. We called him Top, like first aren't.
Right.
And he looks at me, and I mean, if you're watching this, you can understand why they call me. But if you're hearing it, they call me Viking in jail. I got a big beard, and so they said, the dude looked at me. He's like, "Viking, shut the fuck up." And like at first, I was like, "Who is this guy talking to me?" Right? And he was like, "You created all these problems in your life. When you accept that, you'll be okay." And I was like, "This motherfucker don't know me." But I was so angry and so like not capable of receiving that at that time that I sat with it and I was like, "Man, fuck him." And I did that for about 2 hours, man. Literally stared at him outside of my cell and was like, he doesn't know who he's talking to. And like I was somebody special, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then I just sat there and I was like, "He's right. I created all these problems in my life, right? Other people contributed to it, but I created it, right?"
How did that hit? How did
That
that
hit hard.
Okay.
That hit like a freight train, man, because like I could look back at instances in my life where like I had the chance to be a good human being because I didn't view myself as a good human being. I had chances in my life where I could have made the right decision and I didn't. And it altered the way like my timeline essentially and altered, where I would be at. And so I was like, he's right. And I just really sat with it. And that was December 27th. And I went when I sat and I really accepted it, dude, like in my heart, in my brain, everywhere. I got a knock on the door, and it was the craziest shit that ever happened to me in my life, and nothing can duplicate or replicate it. Got a knock on the cell, and I look up, and it's the corrections officer, and he's like, "Hey, man, come on, pack your shit up." So what's going on? He's like, "Your bail got posted." I was like, "What?"
Who?
He's like, "The CO said that my bail had gotten
No.
posted."
Who did it?
I'm gonna get to that in a second.
Okay.
So I was like, "What?" Right? And like I was confused. He's like, "Yeah, we're just waiting for electronic monitoring to come and put on your ankle bracelets, and you're good to go." Found out it was a guy that I had encountered in jail when I first got there, and I, I was a veteran, and he wasn't, and I was nice to him when everybody else treated him like shit, and he put up my bail.
Mm. Man, that just gave me goosebumps and chills all through my spirit, bro.
Yeah, it's crazy, and he was the one that met me outside the jail when I got released, and he put me up the first night. That moment forward, I entered into what's called the therapeutic courts, and you want to know about it. So, therapeutic courts is a rehabilitative court. It, everywhere calls every state city calls it something different. You call it drug court, mental health court, DUI court, any kind of court that takes somebody that has been in the criminal justice system that has a substance use disorder or a mental health disorder and puts them through treatment, and on the back end they receive a reduced sentence or something that's better for them for putting in the work to become a productive member of society.
Mm-hmm.
And in Alaska, we had a veterans specific one. So I went in, I entered into the veterans one, and my first hearing, I was still in my whites, and I was still in jail. And the judge was like, I've heard that many times. You wanted to get sober, but you just failed. Like, what makes now any different? I said, well, I got to do it for myself, because if I do it for anybody else, like I've done it for everybody else, and they've left, and I've had nobody be sober for, right? And so like, and I said, now if I don't get sober for me, like this next time will be my last. I'll make it sure that it's my last. I have to be sober for me. I can't be
That part.
sober. Yeah.
That part. Yeah.
And I made this like weird statement that at the time I just didn't understand why I was saying it, but it was like a foreshadowing of things to come. I said, God forbid that something happens to my family, like they pass or they leave. Like I got to be sober for me, and odd foreshadowing, but
We got 10 minutes and I appreciate you said so much in that you said so much in both interviews. But that part where you got into it and transitioned to how did Sean get to where Sean is now? You had to accept,
yep,
hey, yo, Viking, sit down and shut up.
yeah, yeah,
A lot of that, you did that. And then on top of that, it's just funny how God intervened in different parts of your story that I find fascinating because I see it now, because I see it as I look back on my testimony, how God intervened so many times on my behalf. Why? Because of the work we have to do for the mental health and the substance use community here. And I'm grateful for that. And for you, that you're here now to fulfill the purpose, to be of service in this way. Yeah, we served our country. Amen to that. But this is what we're supposed to be doing, is our great service to the world, is to give people hope through our strength and through our experiences. And I appreciate that, man. The acceptance. Okay, there's got to be a change. I messed up. I am messing up. I can't blame nobody. And then I got to do it for me. Because when it's all said and done, and when people pass on and leave this world, I gotta still be sober and be of clean in mind and spirit. I gotta be sober because I can't let the hold of them still being here when they leave and pass on, have me relapse. Yeah, thank you.
There's so many times where I've wanted to give up, like not sobriety, but the work, right?
Yeah,
Because I get in my own brain and I say, am I really helping people? Right? Like, for instance, the most recent one was this past week. Like, I wanted to quit doing the meetings that I'm doing for vets in Alaska, not because of them. Just there's some political stuff happening behind the scenes. A lot of people didn't don't aren't privy to. And one of my mentors, dude, just stepped out of the shadows. Like, this man is a man of few words, but when he talks, what he says is impactful. And he's like, Sean, do you get anything out of your meetings? And I was like, dude, yeah. I was like, I get what I need out of it, and I don't realize it until afterwards. And he's like, then why are you willing to give that up? And I was like, damn it, you're right,
I
you're
get.
right.
I add on to that same type of mentality that you have. It was put to me in a different way. Don't worry about being monetized. That'll
Yeah,
be the cherry on the top. If you're doing something righteous in the glory of God and the glory of Christ that you've been called to do to save and help people in the community, it will be blessed. And on
yeah,
top of that, don't worry about the impact of course, you want to have impact on the listener and the viewer. But Derek, think about the impact you have on your guest and the impact that they have on you.
yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Like just what I just said maybe 2 minutes ago, the impact you just gave me.
Mhm.
Man, thank you. That's why I was thanking you. I mean that genuinely and sincerely. Thank you because your impact of what you're doing is keeps me clean and sober and reminds me that I have to stay vigilant because I'm one bad decision away of being back out there and maybe not having another recovery, but having another use or relapse.
Yep.
So yeah, what we do is impactful. Maybe we hit one person out there that's listening, viewing. Amen to that. But what about the people that we're interviewing and the people that we interview and that their story impacts us? Like I took something from you and
Yeah.
all my guests that keeps me going. And I had to, just like your mentor had to remind you, I had to be reminded that same way that, man, you impact your guests. Your guests impact you. Your
Yeah.
meeting, Sean, impact you. Why would we want to give that up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to give that up for anything, right? That's a group that I started, and when we put ourselves in front of everything else, right? That's when things start going sour, right? So removing ourselves from the situation and allowing things to happen the way that they're meant to happen, not the way that we want them to, but the way that they're meant to happen. It all works itself out.
Yeah, selfless service.
Yeah.
Selfless service. Absolutely. I'm all about people ask me, what do you stand on? First and foremost, I can't lie, I do stand on God because that's through God's grace I've been saved and through Christ I've been redeemed. I just can't lie about that. That's what I believe. I don't push it, but it's part of my testimony and I share it. And then the second thing is service, and then the third thing is honesty. I think all of those build off of each other. If I am selfless in my service, I have to be honest,
Yeah.
and in turn, that gives glory to my higher power.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I stand on honesty and selfless service, man. That's one of the things that I do it for me, and it keeps my integrity.
Yeah.
It keeps my integrity, and keeps my name and my reputation uh, clean.
Yeah.
And I like, one thing before we go, I like that you said it hit me. I was like, man, I have a physical date, April 2nd, 2021. That's my clean physical date. And then I have a spiritual date where I'm not on part of the substances. I'm clean from the pornography. I'm
Yeah.
clean from the intrusive thoughts that come in. I try to stay vigilant of them. I try to stay vigilant of how much money I'm spending on my habits, or is this something that's going to bring me destruction in my life? Because it can manifest itself
Yeah.
into other things that could take us back down that road of that degradation road of,
Yeah.
I got this. For you, it was your drink. For me, it was crack cocaine.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I like that you
Absolutely.
said that. That was cool, man. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, and then I think on top of that too, right? Like, our recovery changes, right? Like our what we did to get sober in day one is not what we're gonna do now, right? Like for me, my recovery looks a lot different. Not so much different than it did on day one, but there's things that I used at day one where I absolutely needed it. Where now, like I have them as tools in my tool bag if I need them, right? Like that life event that happened to me in December, dude, I needed them. I literally was like Rolodex of recovery skills. What do we got going on here today? Because I need
Mm.
it. And I reached into my bag and pulled out everything that I could. And it wasn't to stay sober, it was to keep my brain away from that thought, right? Because
Yes.
I had no desire to drink, but that doesn't mean that my brain is going to be like, that looks
Why
good.
not? Yeah. Yeah.
One's not going to hurt you, but I know where one leads me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I kept myself busy in that time frame of like reaching out to people, continuing to pump content out, going to meetings, facilitating meetings, anything that I could, sharing my experience, even in that hard time and being honest, was the most beneficial to me because that was the first time that I've had anything that hard in my recovery. But that was the first time that I've ever faced anything sober where I didn't run to a substance. And it was just like, it's possible, right? And it doesn't just like keep me motivated and keep me centered and humbled, but it helps other people to see like it works, right?
Yes. Yes.
It absolutely works. If Sean can do it, and Sean can do it, and he's in the middle of his situation, and it is as bad for him as it would be for us, we can do it too. And that's I want to motivate and inspire hope in other people.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And being that vessel of hope is very important. And understanding, I like that you said how recovery will change over time, but keep working. And people are like, oh, the cliches of it works if you work it. It does.
It does.
Find a program that works for you. Recovery is inspirational change moving forward. I say it all the time because it's inspirational, positive change moving forward. It will evolve, but it does not take away that it will be inspirational and it will be positive change.
Right.
It never takes that don't go anywhere. It may evolve and look different, like Sean said, from day one to day 1,227,
Yeah.
but it's still
Like
positive. No, go ahead. Go ahead, brother.
no, I was gonna say like like for me, my day one, dude, I was in 12 step meetings every day, multiple ones a day, right? Because like I needed that now. Now I go to 12 step meetings when I need it, and when I feel that calling, right? Like if I feel like I'm missing something in my recovery, I go to a 12 step meeting, right? Because I need that. Whereas like before, I was going there, boom, 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 boom. But I'm doing so much in my recovery right now. I'm not saying that 12 step doesn't work and that it doesn't work for me, but I feel secure in my recovery right now that I don't necessarily need that fellowship. But that doesn't mean that that is off the table for me. Period.
Right, right, right. Listen, Sean, we're running out of time, and listen, I want to tell you thank you, and I love you, brother. Where can people find the Recovery Out Loud Sitting with Sean podcast? Where can they find you and reach you, hear more of your story, see more of your guests, and get in touch with you like that?
Oh, you guys can find me on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube under Sitting with Sean. Just look it up. It's there. It's my beautiful face, my beautiful bearded face. You can find me on Facebook, Sean Young. You can find Recover Out Loud, or sorry, Sitting with Sean on Facebook, Instagram. I don't really mess with Twitter because Twitter's a nasty place. And TikTok, you can find me at the Beard of Maryland. And Derek, I love you too, man. You were awesome. Thank you for allowing me to be here and share my story. You are an amazing host.
Thank you, brother. You are an amazing guest. You are an amazing brother, and I always tell you, give me a thing that you're grateful for that you hold on to.
Man, I am grateful for all the connections that I've made that
Awesome.
keep me sober.
Yeah, same. Y'all keep me sober. And that's what we do. We only can keep it what we have by giving it away. And that is something that I subscribe to. And listen, Sean, I love you, man. I thank you so much for your service and everything that you do. You're a blessing. I pray for you and everything that you do. And I ask God to continue to keep you prosperous, you and your family. And keep
Thank you,
on
brother.
recovering, brother. I love you,
Thank you.
man.
Love you too, brother.
Till next time. Too sweet. Give me
Too
some. Too
sweet.
sweet. Silly. All right, then, bro. Peace out. That's what we do here. Play the tape. We have serious topics, and sometimes experience, strength, and hope can be heavy. But laughter and humor is one of my things that I'm grateful for. It's one of the things that I hold on to. Once again, thank you to Sean. Um, if no one hasn't told you today that they love you, I love you, we love you, and most importantly, God loves you. There are people like myself and Sean and my other guests, past and present and future, that would jump in that pit with you because we know the way out. I know it sounds absurd, but we will do it because we've been there. We'll jump in that foxhole with you, and we'll have your six. That means having your back. And we won't give up because it wasn't given up on us. We are hope. Listen, with peace comes understanding. With understanding comes love. With love comes faith. And with faith comes hope. And with that comes recovery. Understand, we are here and we are not going anywhere. We respect this disease, but we do not fear it. We respect the mental health disorders, but we do not fear them. Until next time, peace.